you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, so I think we have everyone. Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Community Redevelopment Agency virtual regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 8th, 2021 at 5:30. Call the roll, please.
Chair James.
Here.
Vice Chair Salvino.
Here.
Board Member Davis.
Here.
Board Member Llewellyn.
Here.
Board
Can
Member
you hear me?
Yes. Board Member Odman.
Good evening, here.
CRA Director Chen.
Here.
City Attorney Ansbro.
Here.
Thank you. Do we have anyone from the public that wishes to speak? If you would kindly use the raise your hand tool, I believe it's like #9 or something like that. I'll give you a few seconds. Being that I have none, we'll move right into the administrative reports. Go ahead, Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Chair James. Good evening, board members of the CRA. I want to go off script here for just a moment. Just yesterday afternoon, I received a call from Broward County, and there is a very good piece of news. The City Hall garage loan, we have met the qualifications to convert that loan to a grant, and therefore the principal and interest will be waived and is in the process of paperwork being done for Administrator Henry to sign. So that's a good piece of news that I only got yesterday afternoon. This is why it wasn't in the report to begin with.
I have a question. Is that for the remainder of the loan or is that for another portion of the loan? And if it's
It is for the balance of the principal as well as all accrued interest.
okay, so we're done.
We're done.
All right.
Well, we're done once the paperwork is finished.
Of course. Okay. Thank you. That has been a journey. And so I'm glad that we have finally completed the garage and the loan grant payments with the county. Thank you.
Okay. With that, the first item on our report is the residential beautification program. This is where we need to hire a consultant to go in and conduct rehab and landscaping and so forth in our neighborhoods. We have to go out on an RFP to find a new contractor for this. The RFP is in the system. It will be issued tomorrow. So we're making progress with that. We're looking forward to being able to move forward that quickly. And in fact, the response date is by the end of the month. With any luck and so forth, we could very well have someone on board for you by, let's say, for a recommendation for you by the July meeting. As far as the Dania Beach Business Academy, we continue. We are targeted for our launch on July 8th. And we have created a promotional flyer. It is in your packet. Please check that. It is actually, we're getting a lot of outreach assistance with this, including one of our collaborative partners, National Development Council, has agreed to put this on their national network. So we're going to get Dania Beach's name out in primary cities across the country. The Dania After Dark piece, again, we're going to RFP to seek a consultant to provide production services for that. The RFP is in the law office for review. It has already been assigned an RFP number. We could be yet this week to be able to go live with that RFP as well. So a lot of progress is being made there. There was some question about that arose in the workshop that we had a few weeks ago regarding the Commercial Property Improvement Grant Program. Currently that program, well, in fact, let me back up. That program actually has a long history, going back almost a decade, and it's taken several forms, been in different locations, At one time or another, it has included interior improvements, exterior improvements. In its current form, that improvement grant program is only eligible on properties that front Federal Highway and Dania Beach Boulevard. And with that, there was some discussion in the workshop about whether or not there would be an interest or a possibility of that program being expanded to across the CRA. So I just leave that. I think it would be good for your direction and discussion.
Okay, I think I can start on that discussion. I want to know from the research that you have conducted, that those who are excluded, what businesses are excluded? Are churches excluded? I know we've had a number of churches ask me about being able to apply for this grant, had it had the ability to go inside of the neighborhoods or even ones on Federal Highway. But I'm not sure if we were allowing or if we ever allowed religious institutions to be able to apply for this grant. Do you know?
Currently, it is described as commercial properties only, and a church would not qualify for that.
Okay, can you tell us the history about where it used to, where the boundaries were before it was just Federal Highway and Dania Beach Boulevard?
Let's see. Well, I think it was a program that was CRA wide. It allowed for assistance and cost for interior and exterior improvements. And that was changed in October of 2016. And that program was sunset, and the revisions were changed to where we basically are today, with grant amounts ranging from $10,000 to $20,000, basically on a matching basis. That is where it was in October 2016, where the definition of eligibility was Federal Highway and Dania Beach Boulevard. The applicant match increased to 30%. Previously, it only required a 20% match, but it was increased to 30%. And it also prohibits multiple use of the grant. Once a business or once a property has received a full grant through this program, it is ineligible for another application for 5 years. So that's about what I can give you at this point. I do not have the documents in front of me to tell you with precision how properties were classified in the previous versions of this program. Hello?
She's gone.
If we lost the chair, we'll follow up.
Sure. Yeah, I guess we lost her.
Monica will reach out to her to get her back online.
Okay.
She's there.
I had no questions about what you said, but did anyone else have questions or was looking for clarifications?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
I'm good.
All right. Then I guess we will just wait for Chair James to come back. Did you have anything else, Mr. Michael?
Yes, just to remind you that the subject was brought up because there was some interest about spreading the program across the entire CRA for eligibility rather than just the currently designated corridors.
Right. Yeah. All right. We'll give it a minute or two, and this should be hopefully a quick fix.
If we don't get her back, shouldn't the vice chair take over?
Yeah, I just meant like 1 or 2 minutes. I didn't know if it's a quick thing. If not, we can just have Vice Chair Sabino continue the meeting.
Excuse me, the mayor is coming back. She's trying to connect right now.
I would recommend to wait for her anyhow, because she was in the middle of questions and none of us have any. So I think she should finish up her questions.
Agreed.
before-
No worries.
Yeah.
Plenty of time. Here she is.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I was asking the vice chair, I'm not sure how far I got before I was disconnected. I was asking the vice chair, what was the meaning or the thought behind changing it to just those two thoroughfares, US 1 and Dania Beach Boulevard, and going from a 20% match to a 30% match? Because I know you were the mayor at that time, but I don't really remember the conversation.
I don't know, Chair. I would have to review. That's 5 years ago. I'd have to review it. I'm not sure what it was. All I can remember is that we had matches on the US 1 and Dania Beach Boulevard, and I don't know how far it extended out, but I do know that times have changed, and I think that the possibility of adding other, I don't know how far it goes, but any other main roads that, whether any part of Griffin Road is included, Sterling Road is included, First Street might be included because it's a thoroughfare to Dania Point. We might be able to include those into that area. If we want to add something there, I think those would be primary targets.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I would like to see us definitely expand on those. I don't think Dania Point is hurting for any money or needs that much assistance, so.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we just let Michael? Why don't you go ahead and bring back some of those areas that you think we might need to include that are primary target zones with businesses that would be able to use the commercial buildings, that we'd be able to use something and see what goes from there. We can talk about it at the next meeting as well.
Right. Is there anyone that has any other areas that you think ought to be included? I definitely think Northwest First Street should be included. I definitely think Sterling Road is an important thoroughfare, and it should be included as well. And I'm not sure how far down Dania Beach Boulevard, east or west, that the boundaries go, but I don't know any other areas. So if you guys know any other areas, please give them to Mr. Chen so he can bring us back something.
Yes, Chair. No problem.
I would be happy to provide some suggestions for your consideration at our next meeting.
Thank you.
With that, the next item on the update is Smith Store Properties. Again, we're at a position now where the construction drawings are in the hands of the Community Development Department for review. And in fact, it turned out that the architect also had surveys done on the properties, which is savvy for him to have done if he's going to do design. So we also have surveys on that. It is our understanding that all the materials necessary for the plan review is now in the hands of Community Development. And we will look forward to their findings. And I have spoken with the architect. He is basically at our call to deal with any questions or issues that arise from the review. As far as economic development update, we actually, as we mentioned, the month of May, we celebrated as Economic Development Week. As Dania Beach, we went big and declared it to be Economic Development Month. In that program, we promoted some of our businesses. We promoted our grant programs and so forth to make sure our businesses were aware of them. And we actually sent out with some frequency basic business tips just to kind of keep our businesses engaged with our Facebook content. For the month, for our small business spotlights, we recognize Ideal Food Basket, which had their grand opening that most of you attended. In fact, maybe all of you attended. The Fish Grill Restaurant, the Night Market at Dania Point, Sherry Kaplan, Historic Dockers Restaurant, Associates MD Medical Group, the Weiner Museum of Decorative Arts, Three Sons Brewing, and a casino at Dania Beach. For June, we're recognizing that to go with the city manager's monthly theme program. It is our position on this is going to be celebrating diversity. And so we'll be highlighting minority-owned businesses, women-owned business, and disadvantaged business enterprises. The idea being to make sure that our businesses are aware of the various certifications that might be available to them that would give them a leg up for various types of contracts, especially any kind of government contracting that has minority requirements to it. So we're going to enter that campaign for the month of June. An update on the Oasis Point Residences Job Fair. We are still, we now have a date, June 24th from 5 to 7 will actually be a job fair on the construction site, excuse me, at the construction office, which is just a couple of blocks off site from the project. Meanwhile, we have managed to register the project with CareerSource Broward. So they have access now to all the databases and so forth to search for labor as they need it through CareerSource. Social marketing update. We're going to start providing this information to you. We are spending time maintaining our web pages and so forth. We want to make you aware of what's happening with that. So for our social media campaign, we had approximately 90 posts for the first quarter of 2021. Those included citywide events, promotion events, patch, and just generally love Dania Beach. With that, we had over 50,000 page impressions and a little over 1,400 page reactions, with over 34,000 post engagements. So we're going to start giving you that. So hopefully, as we make our content more useful, more interesting, and so forth, we will actually be able to track the progress of our effort and how it's affecting and being followed by the public. For a patch update, the patch is continuing to provide produce for their online market. The USDA consultants participated in a health clinic in Fort Lauderdale with the University of Miami and the YMCA. The mobile market was featured as a sale for the popular Patch Bag Farm, and the Patch and its programs were well received in that forum. And there is a photo of the event as they participated in your package. We also had a cohort recognize the importance of connecting with local agencies to kind of keep our patch operation engaged. And consultants are working with the next South Broward Food Hub meeting, which will be a presentation for grant makers in health, which is a group of funders who might be interested in providing assistance to the patch through the future. The team is continuing working. I mentioned to you in one of our previous updates that through a donation, they're getting a vermi composting machine. I guess you can call it a machine. So anyway, that is coming to the patch and is going to be set up. And we're preparing our partnerships with you, Urban Health Partnerships and South Broward Community Health. And again, I can advise you, please take a look at the attachments and so forth that were part of the admin report. I think there's some very interesting materials for your information there. Okay, and that's it for the admin report. If you have any questions.
Thank you. I don't see any hands raised. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Do we have any polls? Or do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Proposals and bids, discussion and possible action. At Home Dania Beach with the CRA properties.
Yes.
You want to begin this, Mr. Chen?
Thank you. So I prepared a memo for your consideration on this. And I tried to give you some background to understand what we're working with here. Basically, the CRA owns 16 properties with a total of 79,000 square feet. If you actually do the math, they're pretty small properties on an individual basis. Basically, I have grouped them into bundles. There are 11 parcels that are potentially buildable. The 11 parcels total 47,000 square feet, which is just over an acre of land in total among 11 parcels. We have one parcel that is developed. It actually has a structure on it that is for sale. And there is one parcel that is designated right away. How it is that the city actually, that the CRA actually owns a piece of designated right away, I'm not quite sure how that came about, but it is a very irregular piece. It's got no potential for development or buildability at all. And then the Smith Store properties, which are a separate discussion as we continue on. With that, I have taken and kind of created another category of description. Out of the 11 parcels that are potentially buildable, 6 of them actually appear to be buildable. They range in size from about 3,700 square feet to 4,200 square feet. And one of them has a little bit irregular dimensions, but it looks like that it probably would accommodate the site plan for a house. In terms of rebuild, there's a buildable reconfiguration. And this is a little bit different and needs to be treated with a little bit different discussion.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm going to mute Tom. Hold on.
Yes.
I thought I did.
Oh, okay. There's 4 adjacent properties that are very narrow as individual parcels. However, they are adjacent to each other and they could be combined. That would make an ideal location for perhaps a low-density multifamily project. And that is a very long-winded way of saying perhaps townhouses or something like that, that wouldn't be disruptive in configuration or size to the neighborhood. And then there is one parcel that is not buildable. And it is in the same corridor as those other 4 properties I just mentioned. Unfortunately, there is another parcel that is between the 4 that we own and the last parcel that we own that makes it that we cannot connect it today. And from the appearance, each parcel, like I said, is so narrow that it doesn't configure well for being buildable. But I have a suggestion for that in just a moment. The base recommendations I have on this, we need to understand what we have, regardless of how we determine to move forward or dispose of them or use them. The first is all of these parcels need to be surveyed. And I mentioned in the previous report, we just found out this week that the Smith store properties have already been surveyed, so we don't need to do that again. So instead of 14 parcels, I'm recommending that we survey the 11 remaining parcels. That's going to be approximately $4,950. And I think we should also secure appraisals for the 11 parcels. These are about $300 each for the appraisals. This would make it a total of about $3,300. This way, you know what you have in terms of land and how much it's worth, so that you actually have some facts to deal with as you decide how you want to move forward in the use of these lands. Once we have the surveys and the appraisals, I would suggest that we put the entire 6 parcels that was for part of Group A, the ones that were identified as being buildable, I would suggest we put those up as RFP. My suggestion is that we put them up on a for sale basis and keep the city and the CRA out of the design and development of those parcels. Now, with that, if any of you collectively decide that you have certain objectives that you would like to achieve through the use of that land, whether it's affordable housing such as workforce affordable, or if it's low income affordable, 80% AMI, whatever terms and conditions that you would like to kind of limit the use or development of that land, this can be accommodated by putting covenants on the transfer, as opposed to us actually getting involved in an unusual and somewhat risky position of being involved in design and construction. Okay, I have given you on the memo some ideas of different types of conditions that you might want to explore or consider. You can do things such as no conditions, put it out for a market rate sale and see what kind of response it attracts. You could mandate that it be used for single family houses. You could mandate affordable housing at 80% AMI standards, or workforce affordable housing at 120% AMI standards. You could require a developer, if in fact you're going to go after the low income affordable standards, you could require the developer to actually provide home buyer training by a HUD approved institution to pre-qualify buyers. If you want to have some influence and let's say opportunity to kind of limit the type of architecture that goes in their neighborhood, you could put these out with the requirement that the buyer has to provide you with schematic elevations and site plans, so that you can at least have a chance to see what kind of architecture is proposed for the use of those lands. If you want to do a criteria that has some kind of income qualification to it, you can also impose things such as require that an existing CRA resident be only can be considered as a qualified buyer. You can also say that you prefer an existing CRA resident to be a qualified buyer. And in any case, with those, if you with any of these qualifications, if you wish to contribute to a buyer's assistance program, you get designated and off the side, if you will, at-home down payment assistance. I've suggested perhaps $10,000 for a qualified buyer that meets any specifications that you have. So these are some different types of considerations or conditions and so forth that you can choose from. And again, the way to keep the city and the CRA safe in the transaction is to convey these as covenants to the land, as opposed to actually getting involved in the design and construction in the process.
Okay, are you looking for, okay, Vice Chair?
Thank you. You know, I had discussed this with Michael a little bit, and I just have a suggestion and see how you guys feel about it. You know, putting up the land for sale, I think the value of the buildable lots could range anywhere from, even as small as they are in today's market, could run anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 per lot. If that's the case, and I think that we do have, Michael, you brought up a good point about, maybe seeing what we can put in there, whether it's narrow enough, we can put a townhouse in there or our residential house. Most of those homes would probably be priced in the range because of the size that they have. Hopefully we can make a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. That'd be really nice. They've made in the marketplace by making the small house, you're probably around $250,000 to $300,000 range. By doing that, if we sell these lots for $70,000 or $80,000 or $90,000, I would recommend that at this point, since we had buyer assistance program before, if we can get that kind of money for these lots and have the developer come in and build these houses, keep them in that price range, I think that we should give them 10% of that money to put down in the house. That way, if the house is $250,000, we give them $25,000 to put down, and if they can qualify, and they can take their own personal loan out, whether it's a first-time buyer or whether it's a military loan or whatever. And I think that would be a better opportunity for people with a larger down going in like that, to give them an opportunity to own a house on their own and the city stay out of it. Because I think the lots are worth a lot more. I think that we could, with that monies that we would incur, it would pay for your surveys, it would pay for your appraisal fees, and also the possibility of putting some of the CRA money into some other projects that you would get out of that, because I think the property is going to be worth that. The unbuildable lots, I think the mayor and I have talked about before, we both have opportunities from developers that are willing to turn them into pocket parks at no charge to the city. We could they would be going there and use those up and bring them to the neighborhood to clean them up and put some nice kid stuff out there for the people to use. I mean, that would be something I think that would be an opportunity for everybody above to get ahead of the game, and I think it's a great opportunity for the residents. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Chen.
Yeah, if I may provide just a little bit of information that I think will help with the conversation. In March of 2020, we got an appraisal of the Smith Properties parcels. Just to let you know, now it is a year old, so it probably has appreciated some sense, but the appraisal on the Smith Properties at that in March of 2020 was $10 a square foot. In that term, for the properties we have in terms of the general buildable properties, that would put these values at somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000, depending on the specific size of the parcel. But again, that is an appraisal that is a year old. This is why I recommended that we get fresh appraisals, so we actually have an idea of what the value of these properties are for the conversation.
Thank you. I would like to add to the conversation. I think that the first round of At Home Dania Beach has been very and truly successful. We've provided 6 homes for individuals who may have never been able to acquire a home on their own. And I think, being able to really serve the CRA and to provide benefits that will help those who are living in the CRA is vital in what our mission is as CRA board members. I'm going to disagree a little bit with the vice chair as to selling the properties and having someone else come and develop them, because the houses that we currently that we just built were nowhere near $300,000, and if they were, no one would have qualified. A lot of people wouldn't have qualified in those neighborhoods, in the CRA neighborhoods, to be able to afford to have those properties. I do think that we still need to add things that are going to benefit first-time home buyers. I do think something that was missing in the last round that we have found through some challenges is that we need to provide an extra benefit or some type of a clause for our veterans. I don't think we had that there, and I think that some veterans, if they are receiving disability, especially with the last situation that staff had dealt with, and actually this was an idea of the city manager to provide a clause to really help our veterans be able to be accessible to these properties, even if their AMI is over 80%. I think that we don't, in America, don't do enough for our veterans, and this is something that we, as Dania Beach CRA board members could do. I do like to require CRA residents as a qualified buyer first. And then if we are having trouble filling those, and it's the same thing that we did for the other go round with the houses. If we don't find qualified buyers, then we reach out to anyone else that is in our city. But I do think that we need to have that as a priority, being as though it is the CRA. And so it should benefit those in the CRA first. I am in agreement to providing the $10,000 payment assistance to the CRA's buyers. And I do want to have the board and my colleagues be able to approve the schematic elevations and site plans and the floor plans before everything goes out, so we can have somewhat of some type of control in this process. It worked well before. I do think that there's always ways to improve, but I do think that we need to mandate certain AMI requirements, and we need to put in language that are strong instead of saying prefer versus require. So those are my comments. Board Member Llewellyn?
Yes, thank you. I think you can still do a lot of those things, even if you do an RFP and put the properties up for sale to a developer. You can put certain covenants on the land, which is what I think our executive director is saying here. But I have to disagree somewhat with regard to the other 6 properties. In that case, we didn't sell those properties. So the only thing that what really ended up happening was we essentially didn't make any money off of those properties at all in order to be able to give assistance to people. With what the vice chair is saying, I think you'd actually be able to make some money because you sell the properties to a specific developer or to whoever bids on it, and you put the covenants on the property so that you are limiting them to a point as far as what the requirements are for the property. So you're still gaining the same thing. You're still going to allow people who maybe couldn't normally afford a home be able to buy a home, but at least you could have some money there so that we could give it back to them. We'd have funds that we could give them, like you said, 10%, whatever they do sell for. If we're able to give them 10% of it, I think that's very reasonable and it's very fair. And then this way we don't have to worry about if something happens and somebody defaults, that the property goes to the bank as opposed to, you know, wherever it should go to. As right now, I mean, we're in a situation where the only thing we get back, if somebody defaults on one of those other 6 properties, the only thing we get back is the initial money we put in for the plan, for the program. And the property goes to a developer anyway, likely, because it'll go back to the bank, and the bank is likely going to put it up for auction and it'll get sold to a developer, more likely than not. So, I mean, if you're, and then we won't have any control over it. So my thought is that I do like the vice chair's suggestion that selling it and then just putting the covenants on it to limit what type of properties, whatever the AMI is and so forth. So I think it makes more sense in the long run, simply because we don't have as much risk and we actually are saving or helping the CRA as a whole, because the CRA is going to end up with more funding. Is really what it comes down to. So that's all I have.
For clarification, I see Vice Chair, for clarification, I wasn't saying, I am in agreement, excuse me, for going out to RFP for them. That's not what I was saying. I am in agreement with that. I didn't know that was the same thing as what the Vice Chair was saying, to sell these properties for $80,000 or what have you. And then those properties would then be on the market from the developer for $300,000. $300,000 is unaffordable, even with 10% down payment in that community, in those communities, in the CRA communities. And so especially where those communities are located, I mean, those properties are located, when we really look at the income in the AMI, $300,000 is not feasible. We still have people from the first round that are waiting to purchase homes that, you know, we only had 6 homes. And so we weren't able to provide adequate amount of properties because we only, you know, this started out as a pilot, and I think it worked really well. And like I said, you all are making very good suggestions, and I'm on board for going out to RFP. Some of the things that in the covenant that I want to really make sure that are in there are things that are going to benefit the residents or the CRA residents, and to make sure that we add some type of a clause. What, I don't know, that's something that we could work out that would definitely benefit someone who has served our country and risked their lives, you know, for our freedoms. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you. You know, I understand both sides of the coin, and I think a good suggestion for us to take to try. I think that maybe if Michael, if you could, with the agreement with the board, maybe, you know, you said $10 a square foot. I don't believe that's accurate anymore by any means. I know maybe you should take one of the lots and get one appraisal and see what it comes out to. I know that also construction costs have gone up, way up. So whatever we did on the first 6 houses is not going to be in existence anymore. I can promise you that. You know, you can ask any developer and possibly ask the developer that built their other homes what the cost per square foot is to build a house. So if they go in there and they build a 1,400 square foot house, and they end up spending $125 a square foot, you know, you're at $160,000 roughly, plus the price of the lot. If the lot is worth, let's just say, you know, I'm right, but the lot's worth $75,000, you're still going to be at $250,000 at a minimum. I don't think you're going to get away from that with a price less than, even if we went back to like we did the first 6, because I think the prices have, I mean, everybody knows what the price of a 2x4 and a sheet of plywood went up to, you know, and if that's the case and we can't come up with an answer that's feasible financially, like the chair says, and, you know, people that come in there and they can only afford so much, then we might need to table the whole project till the prices drop. Because I mean, if they can't afford it with the price increases, you know, even if we did that other way, that price of that house, I guarantee, has gone up 25 or 30%. You know, and as you can see, the market around town. I mean, a house last year that sold for $375,000 is selling for $495,000, and it's crazy. So, you know, I would, if the board would approve it, get an appraisal on one of the lots. See what it is, ask the developer what it costs per square foot, and then maybe we can review this at the next meeting. And one thing that maybe we could approve tonight is taking the 5 empty lots that are not buildable at all and approving that, and let us go out and put some parks in there while we take an opportunity to let the kids have a playground in these pocket parks. And then we can at least get some part of it started, and then go back and Michael can bring back the cost factors, what's going to cost, and then we can decide which way what's best for the CRA district.
Board Member Llewellyn. Oh, before, I mean, not Llewellyn, I meant Ottman, but before that, Mr. Chin, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I need to make sure that I didn't leave a misimpression. I did talk about 4 lots that individually are pretty much unbuildable. However, they are adjacent to each other, and when combined, they are very buildable and would make it would make a very ideal location for low density multifamily housing with 4 adjacent lots that are you know, plotted together. We only have, out of the batch of 11 properties that we've been discussing, there is only one as it stands today that has no chance of being buildable, and that's about it's about 1,100 square, excuse me, about an 1,800 square foot piece of land.
With those townhomes, the vision for a townhome, would you need to purchase that extra piece of land first before we can convert them to a townhome?
Well, actually, the 4 existing lots that we own are adjacent to each other. They can be combined and be a viable site for a modest townhouse project.
Okay.
If in fact,
That's a good idea. I got where she's going. That's a
Hold
good
on.
idea.
We have Board Member Ottman, then Board Member Llewellyn, then we'll come back to you, Vice Chair.
All right.
No, you can continue, Mr. Shan.
oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So in fact, there are actually 6 parcels on this street adjacent to each other. We own 4 of them together. Then there's the 5th one that is owned by a third party. And then the 6th lot is again owned by us. If in fact we could acquire that missing piece of lot, which is basically unbuildable to the current owner, and it makes our end piece also unbuildable. If there's any chance that we could acquire that missing piece of lot, we could put together a very nice assemblage for a townhouse project.
Okay. Okay, Board Member Ottman?
Thank you. I mean, are townhouses the only thing that are on the table to discuss? Have we looked at intentional housing at all? Are you familiar with that, Mr. Chen?
I'm sorry, what was the term that you used?
Intentional housing, also known as co-housing. So whenever I say that, everyone thinks I mean everyone shack up in one house. But intentional, but my commissioners should be bored of hearing about it. They've heard me explain it before. Is intentional housing. It's basically small houses with not tiny houses, smaller footprint houses in a smallish area that use common spaces. In Florida, the most popular one was Gainesville co-housing. If you could write that down and look that up, I think that's probably the best explanation of it. So I guess my question more succinctly is the only thing on the table townhouses?
Actually, I did not mean to leave that impression, and absolutely there are any number of low density multifamily type of configurations that could be feasible. I mentioned townhouses because that kind of gives you an instant visual as to what it is. But for instance, these could actually be a multi-story condo project, and by limiting the height of the building, it keeps it as a low density project. So that's another way. I have also seen some interesting quadplex type housing where you actually have a block of houses that are sharing 4 common walls between the fourplex. Part of this goes to the Vice Chair's comments. Anytime you can do some of these kind of configurations where you are sharing the cost of construction from one unit to another, it helps keep it more affordable for whatever standards you're trying to reach. So a townhouse, instead of having 4 walls, you're actually building 3.5 walls per unit. That's why they're a little bit more affordable in a townhouse configuration. But a condo with, say, a low height condo could serve the same type of purpose as could a quadplex. There's a lot of different configurations, and having someone understand, who are currently active in the business. Again, understanding the housing cost today, it's first page news in everything you pick up. Housing cost and the construction thereof is through the roof right now.
Right.
So
Well, that was actually the second thing I was going to say after asking that, was that I agree with Vice Chair Salvino. When you were saying the numbers, it was very confusing to me because I was trying to sort of adjust accordingly in my head for what I thought they probably actually were now. So I guess if that's the best way to go about it, having an well, not an assessment. What did he say?
sure.
So thank you. An appraisal of one of the houses. I think that makes a lot of sense, because while we know that the cost is up, I don't know that any of us specifically know. So maybe that would give us a better idea, just so we could think about how to move forward with this project.
Thank you. Board Member Llewellyn?
Thank you. I was just going to say, first of all, I like the idea of purchasing that extra lot so that you have the 6 lots together, and that would obviously make it more attractive to somebody that would be interested in purchasing and building on it. But would it make sense? And I could be totally off on this, I don't know. Would it make sense to do an appraisal on one of the lots and then maybe do an appraisal on the group of lots that are next to each other?
Actually, that would be a strategy that I would recommend. The question is, do we do a survey on the collective 4 that we currently own, or do we wait to see if we can acquire the 5th piece, which would give us a collection of 6 lots? I think collectively they have a higher value per square foot than individual lots.
I'm sure they do, because then, like, again, it becomes more attractive to somebody who might want to purchase it, so.
It is, and it will help offset the construction cost.
Do we know if the person who owns that particular lot would be interested in selling? That's
I
another,
have no idea. I would not initiate an outreach to them without this conversation. I did include the Broward County Property Assessors sheet and map that shows you the property in question. It is, oops. It doesn't like to show on it, I'm sorry. But it is a map, and the subject property in question is actually outlined in red. This is the one that's owned by the third party. And you can see that the 4 parcels next to it is the one we currently own, the 4 ones that we currently own. And then to the north of it, there's also, that's the 5th property we own. Part of what's going to be part of that challenge is it's got an enormous tree on it. And I can't imagine we would want to cut a tree down to put a housing unit on it. But in itself, that tree makes it even more challenging as a buildable lot.
Okay, Vice Chair. Vice Chair, I'm sorry, I was muted.
Okay, yeah, you know, I think that, you know, here's another example about selling the lots. If you sold the lots, you did make a profit on it, you would be able to use that money to buy that additional land if necessary. That's just, you know, using the money over and over. I think that if you took and got the appraisal, I mean, you said appraisal, if you talk to the appraisal company and ask them how much of these lots individually, he might charge you $200 a lot. But if you get one price for one lot, then the bulk, you can probably work a price, you know, out with them that they would maybe do all of it for like $500 or something, give you the thing. I just think that once you get the price of the lots, it'll be a lot easier for us to make a decision. I think once you get a price from a developer on how much a square foot, I think a lot of this is going to be a lot easier for us to decide which way to go. And then in the meantime, too, you know, we can also, you know, consider the type of buildings that go up that will help the people in the CRA that can try to make it affordable, you know, and so that we can do it. And I really think that if we made extra money from the lots, I think that extra money, you know, most of it can go towards either buying more property, you know, or improving it, or assisting the purchaser to get in, because either way, we're giving the lot up. So it doesn't make a difference which way that monies go, as long as it benefits the residents of the CRA. That's the only thing I'm looking for, is to use as much of the dollar as wisely as we can to put as many people in as we can. That's my concern.
Thank you. Right now we have a $500,000 allocation for property acquisition that was approved in this last budget. I have not noticed that we have done any property acquisition with that. I would suggest that you go and acquire that property with the monies that have already been budgeted, so we don't have to wait to the next round of budgeting. And also see what other properties that might, you know, you might be able to put together and see if they want to sell. There's a lot of places that are wanting to sell right now. And so if you use those monies and really get on it, I know that I mentioned this months ago, Mr. Chen, probably when you were first getting here. And I know that, you know, you've been busy with a lot of things, but this is something that, you know, we could use to our advantage, because it's already, the monies are already there. And so if you have to go and acquire that property, you can go and acquire that property. And if there are other things that we need to, we can even reallocate some of those monies to put towards down payment assistance if we needed that as well. As far as the parks, I would need to see where those parks are. I'm going to say this. I have a concern with I now have a concern with putting pocket parks like right next to people's homes. It's a safety issue at this point. The CRA areas have not proven to be very safe these days. And so I don't want to add extra stress of hanging out. We already have an issue with one of the CRA properties that there is a lot of loitering and partying and overgrown rubbish and stuff on that property, and it's 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 not appealing, it's not safe, and I don't even think it's legal at this point. So I would want to see what those pocket parks entail, and I would definitely want to get the input of those homeowners or property owners who are adjacent and they would have to live next to that, because it is subject to, you know, a lot of people being right near your house and your privacy and everything that you're used to. And I don't know if we have a hold on empty vacant lots and how the public has been using those empty vacant lots. So if we can, Mr. Chin, bring us back. I looked through all of these. I didn't see a map that kind of had those unbuildable properties that, you know, the vice chair is saying turn into pocket parks or whatever it is. I think there, you could turn to butterfly gardens. I think the one on Fifth Street or Fifth Avenue, whatever road that is beautiful. We can do something artistic. There's a lot of possibilities, of small possibilities that we can do that will help beautify the city and to make those properties appealing for residents to want to come into. But I would like to see those, Mr. Chin, and I'm definitely in favor, as well as getting those properties appraised, however you all want to, so we can be sure to make, you know, the most educated and sound decision that we can make with the information that we have in front of us. I do see an attendee with their hand up. This is Reverend Paul Wiggins. I'm going to allow him to speak. If you could please say your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes. I may ask you to unmute. Are you?
321 Southeast 3rd Street. I'm a little perplexed now with what I'm hearing, particularly after we have had the CRA workshop. And I apologize for coming on the line late. I had a prior appointment. But what I'm hearing now seems to be inconsistent with some of the conversations that we had during the workshop. And let me also say that since the workshop, no one from the CRA has reached out to the members of the community to continue the dialogue. And quite frankly, I'm disappointed with what I'm hearing here tonight, because I'm quite sure if you all think very highly of this, is if we begin selling off those CRA lots to private developers, that whole community is going to be changed. And that's not what the CRA should be about. And I'm quite concerned with what I'm hearing here today, because what I will walk away from this today is saying that workshop was a lie.
Well, what part of the conversation did you come in? Because there were a lot of different options.
Well,
and
I came in on the part where we're talking about selling lots in the CRA.
we were speaking about with the possibility of going out to RFP with those lots to add covenants that would protect, you know, those lots and the residents, instead of us having to do what we did last time and go with the design build and the developer, that we would put it out in the RFP and put a covenant that would have requirements if the board agreed to having only CRA members and
And Chair James, I do appreciate that, but it would have been nice, you know, because one of the things we talked about was having some people at the table to meet with CRA team and the CRA board to begin to talk about that. And I don't believe those conversations have happened. At least I've not been invited to the table for them to happen. And I think that goes against what the grain of what we were discussing in terms of having people that live in that area be at the table and have some conversation about what's being proposed for that area.
Okay, that's
And,
fair.
and you can take me off mute now, because
No.
I'm done.
Okay, well, I'll end with saying, that's fair, and I accept what you were saying. But in order even to have that conversation with community members, we still need to know, like, the appraisal and, all of the qualifications and the documents and the requirements and the specifications of those properties. The next item that we are going to discuss after we complete this one is actually the CRA board composition / advisory board. I did not know, no one has reached out. I will ensure that we continue the conversation with the community, as it is vital for the success of the CRA. But I do think, to move forward just with this part, that if we have consensus for Mr. Chen to go out and at least get those properties appraised, that way we can then continue whatever necessary conversations need to be had, as well as bringing us back a map or a survey of those pocket parks that the vice chair spoke of, or those areas that are unbuildable. Is everyone in agreement with that? Go ahead, Mr. Chen.
If I may, just for, again, clarification, to my knowledge, the CRA does not have lots that could be described as remnant lots that would be ideal for pocket parks. The only parcel that we have that is just totally irregular for that would be the one that was designated right away. And again, as designated right away, that's not exactly an ideal location for a park of any kind, but it does give you an opportunity to do some streetscape along that corridor if you wish. But the other lots, the only one that is really at this time unbuildable is that one that's separated from our collection of 4. If we can join those, every lot we have is buildable.
Okay, well, that changes things then. So if we can just see, well, I'll change the consensus of what I am asking for then. If you can bring us back the different appraisals that were discussed today, whichever ones are best. And then if you could also bring us back more of a map of all of those places, so we can then have a discussion of if we would rather have townhouses at this part or co-housing at this part or whatever it is. If you can give it to us for adequate amount of time, so we could digest and come up with some ideas that we can provide direction to, or to continue the conversation at the next meeting.
I can do that.
Thank you. Board Member Llewellyn.
Can I just add to that? Could we also ask our executive director to try to reach out to the individual who owns that property that's between the 4th and 6th?
Oh, absolutely.
And see if they're even interested in selling. They may not be interested in selling, or they might want way too much money for it.
Absolutely.
That happens a lot. So I think that needs to be done as well. And just on the types of housing, I think if we leave it open, you'll probably get more bites from people. But that's something we can discuss at a later time.
Sure.
I just think you get more interest from people if they know that, because like you said, if you're going to build townhouses or condos, it tends to be less expensive than building a single family home. So that might be something, just if it's left open to anything, even the co-housing, whatever it is, it might be something that would be more attractive. But again, we can look at that down the road.
Right, that's what I was saying, to just bring us back the appraisals, and so we can then have whatever type of discussions and types of housing and recommendations and ideas from the entire board at that time. Right? All right. Next is the CRA board composition / CRA advisory board, and this is something that came from that workshop, and that we asked to have a lot of dialogue and to see if we wanted to change the composition or what the recommendations or the thoughts were in this round.
Okay, if I can, Chair,
Yes.
As a result of the May 13th CRA workshop, we went back to research those issues, and we found that the 2002 resolution that created the city's CRA board through the county and appointing the city commission to be the board under state law, the city board, CRA board, can increase by no more than 2 persons. Those 2 persons would have to be residents within the CRA district. That's the first step. But the second step would be to go back to Broward County to seek an amendment to the original creating resolution for permission to expand the board. Something we found when we did this, because of the advisory board issue, I don't know why this happened, but an advisory board was supposed to be created over 20 years ago. I don't remember who did the legal work on the CRA board at the time, but I don't know if it's special counsel or who. I don't remember doing this because I wasn't too steeped in CRA matters at all at the time. I had just been here for about 3 years at the time. But whatever had happened, there was supposed to be an advisory board that was supposed to be created, and it's supposed to have a board that was racially and ethnically diverse, include citizens who reside or work in the city, or other professionals give technical advice to the CRA. It would be charged with monitoring the CRA for compliance with its objectives and its CRA plan, conduct comprehensive reviews of the CRA and the city accomplishments, and do that every 5 years. So for whatever reason, I don't know who the director was at the time, but it wasn't done. Doesn't mean it can't be done now, and certainly should be done now. And we've given you as an example 2 of the a structure from 2 of the Educational Advisory Board and the Green Advisory Board as a skeleton or a framework within which to operate to appoint advisory board members at this point, if you wish to create one, which I think you.
I think with those advisory boards, they don't really have, I'll reserve my comments. Board Member Ottman.
So my thoughts on it were this, because I did think about it a lot since that workshop, and I did a big pros versus and cons list. And so my worries are this, my concerns are this. If we added on 1 or 2 people to the board, how that affects the dynamic of our debate and discussions. Sometimes we have a challenging time, especially within the time frame of what we have from 5:30 to 7. We've had challenging times keeping the discourse on topic. So, how does that affect it, having 2 additional people on with us, 1 or 2 additional people on? Second is sort of the educational curve. There's a lot of, and I don't know how we would overcome that. I mean, I don't think it's that difficult, but there's certain things we talk about or that we've learned either on the job or going through pretty rigorous educational training through the FRA that makes the conversations flow more easily. And it's not stuff that at least I came into this position knowing. So I don't know if that would make things more challenging. So that was kind of on my con side. On the pro side, do I think it adds some real value, some substantial value to have residents of the community that you are representing and making decisions for an official part of the conversation? I do. I know that I'd want to make sure that we are picking people or had criteria for people that was pretty strict, and that we don't want people with any side agenda or any interests in politics or politicking, anything like that, but who were just residents who wanted to have a seat at the table and help shape the area in which they lived. So I think it would be real challenging. I think it'd be a very hard thing to do, but I mean, we can do hard things, and if other people agree it's of value, I'm definitely interested in moving the idea forward, at least for the sake of continued conversation and debate.
Thank you. Board Member Llewellyn?
Thank you. I essentially agree with what Board Member Odman just said. I think challenge is going to become one, what is the criteria if you want to expand the board and you're expanding it by only 2 people? And how is that determination going to be made as to who is going to be on there? Especially when the CRA it includes a number of different types of stakeholders. You not only have residents, but you also have business owners. You also have, and business owners that live in the city. You also have developers. I mean, you have a number of different people that are involved that have a stake in the CRA. So I think it becomes challenging to make it fair to represent everybody. I mean, we were all elected not only to be commissioners, but also to serve on the board. And we're supposed to be representing the individuals that are there, and that live here and that work here. And, you know, so I think that to add 2 residents, it kind of goes against the normal election process. And I have concerns that it could become very political, and it could become, it could create issues overall, just in general and trying to get things done. And I do agree the time frame, but that's always something that could be changed. But I still think that it becomes a lot more challenging to get things done. We're supposed to be making policy, and I think sometimes people who aren't in this position, it sometimes takes a little while for people to understand that when they're in this job too. So it could create issues. As far as doing an advisory board, I'd like to see what criteria we would include for people that are on the advisory board, because you can't simply have an advisory board that is all residents, just like in a particular neighborhood. I think you need to mix it up, and I actually, if I could, I'd like to ask Mr. Chen if that is something that he has experience with in other cities, because I know that he's been involved in CRAs that are larger than ours. That I don't. How is that usually set up?
Well, hold on. We only have a few more minutes, and we have one thing that we haven't discussed that Mr. Chen didn't discuss in his admin report, which was arts and seafood. And so I do think this conversation needs to be furthered, especially dealing with advisory boards and bringing us back different options where we have a lot more time for everyone to be able to kind of speak. But we are a little pressed for time, and I know we haven't even heard from Board Member Davis today at all, so I want to give her the opportunity to speak as well. So really quickly, if you want to ask Board Member Llewellyn, Mr. Chen, if you had that experience, but
I just want to know when an advisory board is set up. I mean, have you had experiences with advisory boards with CRA? And if so, how does that process usually work? How is it usually set up? And is it effective?
Sure. In fact, I've inherited advisory boards and I have created advisory boards. I have found it most useful. Advisory boards actually provide the best service to the commission when there is a good cross-section of representation on those boards. And in most boards that I have served with before, in addition to describing the number of members that are going to compose of the board, there is also a separate description of the type of interests and perspectives that should be represented on that board. So for instance, on the Economic Development Advisory Board in Fort Lauderdale, it consisted of 11 members. But It also had a series of qualifications. One member should represent small businesses. One member should represent women-owned businesses. One member should represent a major industry in the city. And another qualification that is a little bit different than I think I heard Tom mention, in those contexts, it was considered important to have the input of people who had businesses that had a major impact or influence on the community. So for instance, who would argue that Florida Power and Light is an important component of our community, although the owner of Florida Power and Light doesn't live in the CRA?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just so we can have adequate amount of time to discuss the other thing, is it possible that you can bring us back some different options that we can discuss at the next meeting?
And I can relieve you on that. We're moving forward with the Arts and Seafood Festival.
We're moving forward. Okay. Okay. We just hadn't spoken about it and I didn't hear anything about it. And so I wanted to make sure that we at least covered that and then hear what Board Member Davis has to say and give us a 5 minutes recess before we have to convene again for the commission meeting.
I apologize for not mentioning it before.
No, it's okay. Board Member Davis.
Well, I do know we are pressed for time and need a little bit of a break, so I'm not going to take this and knowing that we're going to continue this conversation later, but I do want to have on record that my initial inclination to have the voices of the community be involved in our city is very important, especially if we're going to be making decisions that affect them. But I wanted to also talk about stakeholders and make sure that they are representative of the people who are in the CRA district and in that community. So I'm not going to go into all the things that I have right now in the interest of time, but I do want to make sure that I got it on record that it is important to have the voices of the community heard, whether we do it with the advisory board or expanding the board. But I do know when you go and do things through the county, there's a lot of red tape that is involved and it can take a long time to do. So in the interim, if we could look at the criteria that would be most important for the diversity and the representation, that is the most important thing for me to continue this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll wait for the next round of discussions with that. When you say we're moving forward with art and seafood, could you elaborate just a little bit? Because I have no idea.
We're starting our planning efforts to host the Arts and Seafood Festival. In fact, I think we've looked at a prospect as being the first weekend in April as being a potential date for the event to be held. Meanwhile, we're starting to, let's say, get ourselves organized to do all the internal planning and work and so forth necessary to put that forward.
I don't know if it would be appropriate for the next time we have this meeting to start it at 5 instead of 5:30, because I know that from experience, when we are talking about Art and Seafood Festival, we have a lot of different opinions on how it should be ran. And I think that we need to hear out everyone's opinions and make sure that whatever we're going to do is representative of what the consensus is of the board. So I'm not sure if that, along with the conversations about the composition of the CRA board or the advisory board and anything else that you will have on there, if it's more appropriate to start that meeting at 5 o'clock instead of 5:30. So would you let us know when you have really looked at the agenda and tried to map out the time frame, if you think that we would need more time than what we have now to be able to comfortably discuss those issues and those items, it would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, will do.
Okay, board member comment, Board Member Davis.
I'm going to take a break. Thank you, Mr. Chen. I wanted to say I really looked at the diversity program, the flyers, and what you're doing to move forward and featuring different businesses every month. So I'm excited about what's to come to our city from the CRA. Thank you.
Board Member Llewellyn.
I'm going to waive my comments this week in the interest of time.
Board Member Bodman.
No comments at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair,
No comment.
and me as well, I'll reserve my comments for the commission meeting. Thank everyone that was in attendance, and we will see you in about 10 minutes. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.